Another Russian oil executive just fell from a Moscow high-riser. The official version? Tragic accident. The real story? Just the latest name in a growing purge of Russia's power elite. Generals, governors, bankers, oligarchs, stripped of power, jailed, or found dead under mysterious circumstances. Regional bosses, once untouchable, losing everything overnight to trumped up charges or because the Kremlin decided their foreign passport made them a threat. Cultural icons expelled, journalists erased from state media, ordinary people imprisoned over a post, a private message, or for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This isn't a Stalinist show trial, and it's not a carefully crafted master plan. It's a brutal, chaotic survival game where everyone, from Putin to the village police chief, is scrambling to protect themselves, hold on to power, or grab what they can before the whole system collapses. My name is Elvira Berry. I am an author born in the Soviet Union. And today, I'm taking you inside Putin's purge. Why he needs it, how it's rotting Russia from within, who benefits, and what this ruthless power game means for Russia's future. Let's get one thing straight. Putin already controls everything that matters: money, power, the security forces, and the media. But in his world, absolute control is never enough, because the moment he shows weakness, he's done. Not necessarily dead in the literal sense, though in Russia that's always a possibility, but dead as a political figure. Why? Because over the past decade, Putin hasn't just demanded loyalty from his inner circle, he's made their lives worse. Sure, they've profited from the war with kickbacks, state contracts, and smuggling, but they have lost something they valued even more: freedom. No more weekends in Europe, no more Swiss bank accounts, no quiet retirement in London or on the Riviera. Instead, they live in constant fear of purges, sanctions, or arrest. Fear of being the next one to fall out of a window. Putin's ultimate goal is simple: to hold on to power until the day he dies. But to pull that off, he needs tools. Could he try the Stalin playbook? Demand loyalty through myth, worship, and a carefully crafted image. He could try, but it would backfire. A real personality cult only works when the leader stands for something bigger: an ideology, a sacred mission, or a divine right. But Putin is the shadow operator, the fixer, the man who never explains and never shows his hand. You can't spend 20 years being that guy and then suddenly say, "Oh, by the way, I'm the father of the nation." Real cults require people around you who actually believe you are the chosen one. And that's not Putin's crowd. There's another problem. If you crown yourself the sacred leader, your family becomes sacred too. They are supposed to step in as some kind of state priesthood. But Putin's family, they can't and they won't. We know almost nothing about his relationship with his daughters, and that silence speaks volumes. The fact that he never even tried to play the role of a devoted family man, a father figure, is telling. That image could have earned him endless political points, especially with millions of Russian women. But there was nothing to build on. So instead, Putin sticks to the only method that's ever worked for him: fear. He needs purges to keep his subordinates paralyzed, too scared to plot and too afraid to betray. Because the truth is, his war in Ukraine isn't going well. He had once hoped victory in Ukraine would cement his status as a global power broker, the man who could negotiate the best deals for Russia's elite, secure their business, and protect their status in the West. But that role is gone. To understand modern Russian politics, you have to understand one simple thing. The system runs on hierarchy. At the bottom are the expendables, the people. At the top, the elites who treat the state budget like their private fund and enjoy privileges far beyond the reach of ordinary citizens. As long as oil money flowed, the system worked, at least for those at the top. The higher you rank, the more resources you controlled. The more clients, allies, and cronies you had under you, the stronger you became. Russia's ruling class lived like feudal lords. Massive salaries by Russian standards, mansions, access to the best doctors, and most importantly, access to the West. That was the ultimate status symbol. If you could travel to Europe or the US, you're elite. If you vacationed in China or Thailand, a notch lower. If you didn't travel at all, you were a nobody. And perhaps the biggest privilege of all, untouchability. You could run someone over in your car, steal millions, get caught red-handed, and nothing would happen. You were above the law, answerable only to the supreme leader. In Russia, this kind of immunity was called by a simple word, freedom. A crude, Wild West kind of freedom, but still freedom. And nobody else had it. The Russian craving to feel special stems from the old Soviet myth of the superhuman, a person seen as superior to others and entitled to admiration for their unique character or supposed exceptional qualities. Back then, it meant revolutionaries, war heroes, cosmonauts, and secret agents. Today, it means those who clawed their way to the top of the state system and gained access to its resources. And that alone makes them believe they are different, better than everyone else. But now, that illusion is falling apart, because today, the very people the elite once despised, the powerless opposition with no money, no status, and no official position, actually have more freedom than they do. The opposition can travel wherever they want, or at least wherever they can afford. They can speak their minds. They can quit a job they hate and start something new. Meanwhile, the only freedom left for Russia's elite is the freedom to buy themselves another expensive toy and pretend they still enjoy their life. In reality, governors, top officials, and businessmen now live under constant threat of criminal charges, purges, or sudden mysterious death. Why? First, because the rule of law is gone. It was always shaky, but property rights, contracts, even basic legal norms still mattered, at least for the elites. Now, forget it. Competition for resources has moved from the legal sphere to raw force. Second, because someone has to take the blame. When things go wrong, you need a scapegoat, so the rest can hold on to their positions and their privileges. Third, because they are hunting for traitors. Anyone who might bolt, make a deal, or cut ties and expose the rest in the process. And fourth, because everyone senses the storm is coming and before it hits, they want to grab whatever they can. Back when Russia's economy was growing, the system still made room for new players, even grudgingly. But now, with the state spy shrinking, the circle has closed. There is no more upward mobility, no way in and no way out. Everyone knows they could be next, not for what they've done, but for who they know or whose side they are on. And there's no way to predict who'll fall tomorrow. The patriotic nonsense you hear from Russian bureaucrats, that's not what they actually believe. Behind the scenes, it's all superstition and magical thinking. Many of them genuinely believe in some twisted version of cosmic justice, that if they confess their sins, perform the right rituals, say the right words, they might escape disaster. Truth doesn't matter. What matters is making peace with the unseen forces that rule their lives and hoping the lightning bolt strikes someone else. They are lost. They have no reliable information. They know all decisions are made somewhere far above their heads in secret by people they'll never meet. All they can do is pray they are not next. Putin was never known for being sociable, but now he's becoming a full-blown recluse, shutting himself off from reality and surrounding himself with courtiers who feed him reports about enemies, both foreign and domestic. He can live without secret memos and confidential files, and he demands absolute vigilance from everyone around him. If you give the boss what he wants, you get funding, protection, and maybe even a promotion. If you don't, you are out. And this is exactly how the current wave of purges and political crackdowns started. Every boss in the system, from ministers to regional chiefs, began hunting enemies, hoping to rise through the ranks while protecting themselves from rivals. Naturally, the FSB and the prosecutor's office are the most ruthless players. They have the tools and the appetite. They are constantly trying to outdo each other, scrambling for direct access for Putin's ear and fighting for more authority. Some bet on uncovering internal conspiracies or exposing corrupt officials. Others try to sell themselves as indispensable on the international stage, cutting deals or skirting sanctions. But even if you are pitching yourself as a dealmaker or a sanctions negotiator, you still have to show full loyalty to the Kremlin's most insane plans, and you are still expected to throw your colleagues under the bus. Otherwise, you risk being seen as soft on enemies or worse, unwilling to do your job. If your job is to expose enemies and if you don't deliver results, you're useless. And the state's already slashing budgets as the economy cracks under pressure. So you have to prove you are doing important work. That's why they go after people like the writer Boris Akunin or pop star Alla Pugacheva who dare to speak out against the war. If your victim is famous enough, the boss might notice your efforts and leave you alone or even promote you. But don't imagine these people as movie villains. Russia's security operatives aren't masterminds or ideologues. They are adventurers, chasing easy money, petty, spiteful, and ignorant bureaucrats. They hunker down in their Lubyanka fortress like hyenas in the mountain cave, hunting because they are hungry, clinging to power because everyone fears them, and because they only fear each other. And strangely, all of this is a direct legacy of the Gulag. The Soviet camp system was built on a fight for privileges. Most prisoners didn't dream of escape. That was impossible if your camp sat on a remote island in the White Sea or deep in the Yakutian tundra with nothing but frozen wilderness for thousands of miles. Instead, they fought for a warmer bunk, a better meal, or a brief reprieve from hard labor. The guards didn't rebel either. Why would they? If you were a guard, you slept in a separate barrack, ate better food, maybe even got a fur coat. You didn't have to stand in the freezing wind for inspections or fish logs out of icy waters. Discipline in the camps was not maintained by loyalty, but by fear or losing what little comfort and protection you had. The system corrupted and broke people every single day. Snitch on your neighbor and get an extra piece of bread. Volunteer as an executioner and skip a dangerous assignment. Become a traitor, and you might earn a pair of felt boots. This is the logic that Russia's security elite inherited. And this is the logic they still live by. If you want to dive deeper, read my novel, The Prince of the Soviets. The link is in the description. Many people both inside and outside Russia still believe the Kremlin has some secret plan for the country's future, a grand strategy known only to a select few. The truth? There's no plan. The entire hope of the Russian elite rests on one fragile fantasy that Ukraine will eventually collapse, that Europe will grow tired of sanctions and accept Russia back. Because after all, Europe needs cheap Russian resources. And once that happens, everything will magically return to business as usual. But what if it doesn't? What if Ukraine doesn't fall and Europe doesn't come crawling back? Then who's going to fix the crumbling Russian economy? Where will they get the loans, the technology, and the specialists? Of course, the propaganda machine keeps churning out promises of self reliance and import substitution. Every week, there is a fresh wave of breakthrough projects, all designed to transform Russia into a flourishing wonderland, a shining example to make Europe jealous. There's just one problem. These projects all need money, and there's no money left. Now, old Soviet ideas are creeping back in. Price controls, centralized planning, government-run industries. It didn't work before, but this time they say it will, because now we have artificial intelligence. Sure, just give them the money and trust the plan. For now, the Kremlin leans on technocrats like Elvira Nabiulina to hold the financial system together. As long as they prevent a total meltdown, they are tolerated. But this is a fragile balance. If those technocrats fail or get replaced by loyal but clueless hardliners, the system will collapse even faster. And here's the logic I see playing out in Russia today, that technocrats will be the next victims of the purges. After all, these technocrats enjoyed high salaries and special privileges, so now they are expected to deliver results. If they can't, they'll be thrown under the bus. At least they'll be useful as scapegoats. And this is not just frightening. It's paralyzing. How do you expect state institutions to function when the people in charge drink themselves numb every night? Because they know the knock on the door could come at any moment. The problem is not just a shrinking state budget. It's the quality of every decision made by terrified people who know they could be next. Ordinary Russians live in two worlds at once. One they see on TV, a world of victories, bright futures, and heroic battles. And the other, the real world around them. For some, life was actually improved since the war began. Soldiers and their families now get steady military pay. Workers in defense factories make more than before, and others travel to the occupied territories where salaries are several times higher than back home. These people are completely cut off from Western information, partly because they don't read foreign languages, partly because they stick to familiar news sources, and partly because they choose not to know things that scare them or make them uncomfortable. Their hopes hang on the rosy future painted by propaganda. Any critical analysis threatens that fragile belief in a powerful Russia and in themselves as part of a great nation. So naturally, they reject uncomfortable facts, whether they come from foreign journalists or Russian opposition voices. At the same time, ordinary people are trapped in a daily dance of submission, constantly trying to please the state and their bosses, like a child in an abusive family trying to win their parents' approval. But this mix of fear, powerlessness, and anxiety does not just make people obedient, it makes many of them angry. And anger always needs a target. So when the regime hands them enemies, it's a perfect outlet. They get to hold on to their belief system and vent their frustration at the same time. On state TV, in Telegram channels, you hear bloodthirsty calls for violence, and it feels like the whole country is hungry for war. But the real hate-mongering comes from educated, well-off people, journalists, influencers, and celebrities, terrified they'll be the next target. So they rush to prove their loyalty. I'm not with them. I'm with you. Look how brutal I can be toward your enemies. Please, Don't touch me. Famous actors, singers, and writers, they all join the mob. Some of it is calculated, some of it is sheer instinct. The old reflex to cling to a strong protector when times get hard. And the vast majority believe this madness will somehow blow over on its own. That if they just keep their heads down, life will go on. They are convinced there's nothing they can do, and honestly, they are not wrong. I believe that real change won't come from a heroic uprising or some magical reformer. Russia's only real hope lies in its civic society. Yes, it's a society brutalized by propaganda and fear, but it's still massive, educated, and culturally alive. Civil society will outlast this regime, but it will have to heal from years of repression and demoralization, and that's the real work ahead. Slow, hard, thankless work in education and culture, in rebuilding trust between people. If this video helped you see beyond the headlines, if it gave you a deeper understanding of what's really happening inside Russia, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. It's the simplest way to help this story reach others who need to hear it. And if you are curious about Russian voices not silenced by the state, check out my other channel, Elvira Bari Forbidden Books. It's not political, just stories of all kinds, from thrillers and fantasy to historical fiction. And if you want to go further, if you want to be part of a community that looks beyond the headlines and dares to ask the hard questions, join my think tank. Or support this work by buying me a coffee. Every bit of support helps me keep telling these stories. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay curious and stay questioning.